Today, we're going to break down a single moment in time when a massive piece of our digital world just vanished. This is the story of the day the internet blinked.
No, I mean, really think about that for a second. Not just a slowdown, not a glitch in some website you're trying to visit, but a fundamental chunk of the internet winking out of existence for millions of people all at once. Sounds like something out of a movie, right?
Well, it actually happened. On that day, a massive event rocked the very foundations of the web. And get this, it wasn't caused by some huge cyber attack or a hacker in a dark room. It was something way more subtle and, in a lot of ways, a whole lot scarier.
Okay, so to really get what went down, we first have to meet the main character in our story. And it's not a person. It's a service that's so important, some people call it the internet's bouncer, a company named Cloudflare.
Now, you'll see these technical terms up here: reverse proxy, content delivery network. Sounds complicated, right? But what it does is actually pretty simple to wrap your head around. Cloudflare basically sits in the middle, right between you and a ton of the websites you use every day. Think of it as a gatekeeper, a bodyguard, and an accelerator all rolled into one.
And this bouncer analogy, it's perfect. It makes it all click. So imagine the entire internet is one giant exclusive nightclub. The websites, that's the party happening inside. And Cloudflare, that's the bouncer at the front door. They're checking IDs, making sure no troublemakers get in, like a DDoS attack, which is like a mob trying to crash the door. And they help the line move super fast. Simple, right? And this right here is the absolute key to the whole story. When that bouncer has a problem, they don't just wander off for a break. No, the entire entrance just shuts down. The door is locked, the rope goes up, and nobody is getting into the party. And that is exactly what happened. So naturally, when a huge chunk of the internet suddenly goes dark, what does everyone think? An attack. The engineers at Cloudflare immediately scrambled looking for the bad guys. But what they found? Well, it was staring right back at them in the mirror.
The data they were seeing was total chaos. Servers were crashing and then coming back online totally at random. Traffic was all over the place. I mean, every single signal was screaming that this was a huge, coordinated, malicious assault. They were in what they called a fog of war, chasing a ghost that wasn't even there.
And this is the kicker. This is the big reveal. After all that time spent hunting for an outside attacker, the truth finally came out. There was no attack. There was no villain. The whole thing, the entire global meltdown, was a self-inflicted wound. It was triggered by one of the most routine, seemingly harmless things an engineer could possibly do. Now, I want you to focus on that word, flapping. The network wasn't just down, it was flickering. One moment, a server would get a good file and pop back online. The next, it would get a bad one and crash all over again. And that constant flickering, that on-again, off-again chaos is exactly why everyone was so convinced it had to be an attack. So, you've got to be asking, right? How on earth could one tiny little internal change cause this global catastrophe? Well, let's trace the dominoes as they fall, because this is a masterclass in how incredibly complex systems can break in the most unexpected ways. Okay, follow this chain of events. It all started with a simple, routine security update on a database. But that update had a tiny, unforeseen side effect. A query started sending back duplicate data. Because of those duplicates, a critical configuration file suddenly ballooned to twice its normal size. Now, the software that reads that file, it had a fixed amount of memory set aside. The oversized file blew right past that limit, the software panicked, and it crashed. And because this was happening on servers all across the planet, the whole system crashed. And if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, here it is. The software was a proxy written in Rust, which is a programming language famous for being super safe and preventing exactly these kinds of memory errors. But here's the thing. The problem wasn't the code itself. It was the idea behind the code. To make things faster, it pre-allocated a specific chunk of memory for this one file. The moment that file got too big, that quest for speed became its single catastrophic point of failure. You know, finding the problem was the really hard part. Fixing it was, believe it or not, pretty quick. But the real gold from an incident like this is what you learn from it. And these lessons, they apply to anyone who builds, well, just about anything complex. So how'd they stop the bleeding? First, they cut off the supply of the poison. They stopped that oversized file from spreading any further. Then, they basically performed emergency surgery, manually pushing out a known good, healthy version of the file. And finally, they hit the big red button and forced a global restart to get everything back to a clean state. The internet's bouncer was back in business. All right, lesson number 1, and this one is huge. We treat our software code with so much care, right? We have intense testing, code reviews, slow rollouts, the works. But configuration files? A lot of the time, we just treat them like minor tweaks. This incident is proof that a bad config file is a loaded weapon, just as dangerous as buggy code. It needs to be treated with that same level of respect.
Okay, this next one is a really cool concept in engineering. The system was designed to fail stop. That means when one small part broke, the whole thing crashed to prevent any more damage. But a better way is often what's called graceful degradation. Think about it. If the file for managing bots is broken, maybe just turn off the bot management for a little while, but let all the normal traffic keep flowing. You want the system to limp, not just flatline.
The team lost so much precious time because their gut instincts and all the chaotic data were pointing to an attack. It's a textbook case of confirmation bias. The lesson here is your monitoring tools have to be so good, so clear, that they can practically shout at you, hey, this crash happened exactly 1 second after you deployed that new config file. It's about having the right data to stop you from chasing your own tail.
And the last big technical lesson here really gets to the heart of the bug. It boils down to this. The software was just too trusting. A super simple check, something like, hey, is this file bigger than I expect it to be? If it is, I'm not touching it. That one little check would have prevented the entire global outage. The lesson is a classic one in programming. Never, ever blindly trust your inputs, even if they're coming from inside your own system.
And this quote just nails it. This wasn't a story about bad tech or dumb mistakes. It was a story about complexity itself. All the millions of moving parts that make our digital world function can connect in ways that no single human being can ever fully predict.
So, as we wrap this up, it leaves us with a pretty powerful thought. This whole catastrophe started with a simple, well-intentioned security change. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In the complex systems that make up our own jobs and our own lives, what's that one tiny, simple, seemingly safe change that could bring the whole thing crashing down?